Okay, so good evening, everyone, and a very, very warm welcome to the Voice of Calvary Ministry presents Soul Magnet webinar. And I'm so happy and excited to see all of you join for our webinar. And I believe you all are going to learn so much this evening because we have an interesting topic. And this webinar is where you learn about from what some of the great people in the corporate world about what the corporate world actually looks like, the mindset you need to have in the corporate world, along with their experiences and along with their spiritual life in the corporate world. And this evening, we have a very interesting topic that says the victor's mindset. And I would like to say a few lines that is said by Vicky Cox that you can't expect to be a victor if you're living with a victim's mindset, which completely says that we need to get rid of living with the victim's mentality and we need to develop a victor's mentality. And today evening we have in our midst Mr. Rajiv Chelladurai, who's going to take us even more deep into this beautiful topic. And introducing him to you, Mr. Rajiv Chelladurai is a sought-after speaker and has spoken in many forums as well as educational institutions. He has over 2 decades of corporate experience, having worked for some of the leading business entities, which include the Tata's, Birla's, New Life, Max New York Life Insurance, PPL, to name a few. He has currently set up his own organization, ERGOS Mind, and has also authored several books. So, Mr. Rajiv, we welcome you this evening, and we are I believe you all are excited to hear from you. And before Mr. Rajiv takes over, I request you all, if you all have any questions related to the topic, or anything, you all can definitely put it in the chat box. I believe Mr. Rajiv would love to answer all of them. And without any further ado, the stage is yours, Mr. Rajiv.
Thank you, Tanya, for that introduction and for setting up the context. Let me just get my slides on. Just give me a second. Awesome. So I'm excited to be here. Had the privilege to share at your camps. I think I've come to 2 camps, been able to share there. Good to see some good friends on the call. See Pekita there, to see Sagar, to see Brother Ronnie. Right, good to see many familiar faces, right? I want to be speaking today about what I call the victor's mindset. Because you see, at the end of the day, if you want to achieve God's purpose in your life, if you want to stand out and be counted, be it the marketplace, be it any area where you are operating from, it is not so much about skill. Now, hear me right. Skill is very important. Expertise is very important. Using your talents is critical, right? All of that is very important. Having IQ and learning about stuff is very important. But all things being equal, it's your mindset that makes a difference. Because I've seen in my career, I've seen people who have lesser expertise, who've got lesser skill, but they have a very strong mindset, and the mindset has been very positive. And I've seen these folks actually go ahead in their career as compared to folks who had, all the amazing education and were fortunate to get their education from prestigious universities and this and that, right? But their mindset wasn't very positive. And therefore, I think it's very important to focus on the mindset. And I want to talk to you about a victor's mindset. And I think very rightly said by Tanya, even as she set up setting the context, that you cannot be a victor if you're operating with a victim's mindset. You need to check and ask yourself, what is my mindset, right? What am I operating from? If I ask each of you, do you have goals? Do you have ambitions? And I think most of you will say, yes, I have goals, I have ambitions. And if I ask you what's stopping you from achieving those goals and ambitions, you'll realize, hey, you know what, it's in my mind. I'm fearful, I'm apprehensive, look at how the conditions are, all of that sort. We come up with our own excuses, our whole excuse list, which prevents us from taking the step forward. We're clear with the plan, but we're not clear in our mind. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. And, I'm a man of faith. I really believe that I believe in principles. I believe principles operate, give us more results than conditions. Conditions are important, but if you work the principles, automatically you get the results, right? For example, seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness. That's the principle. The condition is there, then, and when you operate that principle, the result that you get there is all things will be added to you. The principle, the Lord is my shepherd. Okay, that's the principle. So if you follow the shepherd, you know what's going to happen as an outcome, goodness and mercy will follow you, right? So I really believe in using the principles and not just depending upon conditions. So therefore, for me, faith is very important. I think faith is not something you just keep for one day of the week and then the rest of the day you try and do whatever you want. I think faith is integral to living. I think faith is important. Is a very important foundational aspect for your mindset, right? So I'm going to be using a lot of principles that I follow and which are deeply rooted in faith. And I want to talk to you about how can you use the victor's mindset. But even as we get started, let's just. I don't want to bore you with the details. I don't want to beat an issue which is already beaten down so many times. But the fact is, just to pause for a minute and introspect and look at the times that we live in, right? I mean, 2020, 2021 have been this unprecedented times. And I think the number of times the word unprecedented has been used, it's not been used, I think, in any other year or a couple of years as the number of times it's been used in 2020 and 2021. I mean, these stay at home, lockdown, stay safe, right, is something that we keep telling each other right now. Keep your distance, social distancing, don't go out. I mean, all of that has become so common to us, isn't it? And to top it all, there have been consequences. The consequences are the economy is not has been shaken because of the impact of COVID, right? Businesses are closing down because of the impact of COVID, right? You look at jobs and there's layoffs that's happening in some sectors, again because of COVID. And you wanted to study, but you know what? You can't go on campus and study. You have to study online and study from afar. And that's quite painful, isn't it? I've seen people who wanted to get married and their marriages have got delayed because of the COVID situation. So we're living in very crazy times. We're living in very radical times. We're living in times, and as a result of this very different times that we live in, you know what's the impact? The impact is mental health is a serious issue. And as a consequence of that, 1 in 3 people have some form of mental health issue. And as a consequence of that, depression is on the rise. And and we live in times when which is very depressing. Let me put it that way. Having said that, a victor's mindset causes you to have a very different perspective of it. You accept that these are difficult times, but you accept it. But the fact is, you have a different perspective. You tell yourself, if these are difficult times, these are also times of great opportunities. So a victor's mindset is about having a different perspective. Okay, not just the perspective of everybody or the herd, but your perspective is different. When everybody sees problem, you're saying, hey, you know what? I think I can find a solution. And you look at some of the businesses today, and the businesses that are doing well are businesses which are finding solutions, right? So you have a victor's mindset is to have a different perspective. A victor's mindset is to defy the odds. Different perspective. Second is to defy the odds. Say the odds are against me, right? Can't do. I can't prosper. I can't get my dream to happen. I can't achieve my goal right now. But that's a victim's mindset. But a victor's mindset says, hey, you know what? There are odds, but I'm going to defy the odds. I'm going to defy the odds, right? And thirdly, a victor's mindset is about doing the impossible, right? But everybody says not possible. ये तो नहीं होगा यार, chance ही नहीं है. Okay, but then you say, you know what? I'm going to make it possible. With God on my side, I'm going to make it possible. I'm going to find a way with God on my side, right? So you choose to do the impossible. You see, you can either have a herd mentality, and a herd mentality is you adjust your thinking to what the majority is thinking about, which everybody is thinking about. You adjust your thinking to that. So if the majority tells you, hey, you can do it, you know what, then you think I can do it. If the crowd says, hey, you know, you can't do it, then you say, no, I can't do it. Why? Because the crowd is saying that. But a victor's mindset says, hey, you know what? Okay, the crowd is saying that, but I believe I can have a different perspective. I believe I can defy the odds. I believe I can do the impossible. That's what a victor's mindset is all about. Now, the question arises, saying, Rajiv, all this sounds great. Yeah, it's all motivational, but kaise hoga ye? How will this happen? Right? I want to share with you principles. And I'm talking about principles, and I think principles, like I told you, are very important. And these are principles that I operate. These are principles that are not theory. These are principles that I use in my life, right? And I've seen the results, and therefore I share with you with great conviction. The first thing about a victor's mindset is vision. Right? What is vision? Vision, I want to quickly define between vision and sight. Sight is what we see with our physical eyes, you know. And as you can see, I got glasses, so you know I need support to see, right? Sight is what we see with our physical eyes, but vision is what we see with the eyes of our spirit. Vision is what we see with the eyes of our spirit, which means it's not physically there, but you can actually see it in your mind's eye. You can actually see that which is not as if it is, right? That is vision. And you look around, right? You look at, for example, we're using a Zoom platform today. Now, somebody somewhere saw the possibility of creating a virtual platform which could be used for people to have virtual meetings. And by the way, Zoom happened much before COVID happened. Huh? And because somebody saw that, they went about taking that vision and acting on that vision and creating something which is called a Zoom. And today, by the way, Zoom is one of the most profitable companies, as you can imagine, thanks to COVID and everything else. But everything that you see around you, a skyscraper that you see, well, somebody had vision. If you look at the sea, the what do you call that? The sea bridge, in Birla, whatever that's called. Somebody saw it in their spirit first, and therefore they went about building it. So a business, somebody saw that business, had a vision of that business in their spirit before they could actually build it. You see, if you want to have a victor's mindset, you got to operate, you got to be able to tune into that vision that you see in your spirit. But you know, sometimes we get so busy looking at Facebook and Instagram, you know, and by the way, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn. It's good to see all those things, but don't be so busy looking at only Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn that you're not able to see things in your spirit. You got, if you want to be a victor and operate with a victor's mindset, you got to have the ability to see the vision in your spirit. That's what makes you a victor, right? I want to read a scripture from the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2 and verse 3 in the Bible. Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 3. And this is what the Lord said. The Lord answered me, write the vision, make it plain on the tablets. They use tablets. I mean, you're not talking about Samsung and iPad. Tablets were stone tablets they used in those days. So whenever they want to document something, they wrote it on tablets. Whenever they want to write something important, they would write it on tablets, right? So the Lord said, write the vision, make it plain on tablets, so that he who runs, he may run who reads. For still the vision awaits its appointed time. It hastens to the end. It will not lie. It may seem slow. Wait for it will surely come. It will not delay. See, so scripture tells, you know, the importance. God tells in the scripture the importance of writing down a vision. Maybe God, you have a vision within you, right? You have seen something in your spirit. Are you taking it seriously? Are you writing it down? Are you thinking about it? Are you praying about it? Are you planning about it, right? Are you working on it, right? That's very important. Sight, you see, the sight that we see with our eyes has limitations, which means you can only see to a certain distance. Beyond that, you need binoculars. Beyond that, you need a telescope, right? Only to a certain distance. So sight has limitations, but you know what? Vision is limitless. Vision is limitless. And that's the kind of creative power that God's placed within each of us. But you know, we're going to just depend upon sight. Seeing is believing. I'll see and then I will do. That's limited. There are, it's limited, but when you see through the eyes of your spirit, you see through your eyes of your mind, it's the power of imagination is just limitless for you. You got to use that. You got to exercise it. It's a gift. Okay. Sight is universal, which means everybody can see, but vision is personal to the visionary, which means what God shows you in your spirit about a future business, about an opportunity at work, right? About an idea, about a song that God's given you saying to compose, about a book that you need to be writing, right? Only you can see it because it's been shown only to you. Sight, I can see the trees, I can see the birds. We can all see that, right? It's universal. But vision is personal to the visionary. It's been given to you personally. And therefore, it's very important for you to log on to that vision and not dismiss it. Don't say, okay, I'll wait for 5 people to come and share the idea. Let me, from a personal experience standpoint, right? I've had different visions, and some I've acted upon, but some I've not acted upon. I knew I had the vision. For example, I had this idea of starting an online e-learning facility for school students, that they could get notes and they could get their courses could be easy and all of that. I was excited. I mean, I knew it was a good idea. I didn't act upon it, but there was a company called Byju's who acted on it, and today they are multi billionaires, right? I had the vision. I didn't act on it. See, the vision has been given to you to act on it. The vision can seem so large and you can seem so small. That's the definition of a God idea. A God idea will seem so huge and you'll seem so small, right? So you got to act on that vision. The next thing about vision and sight, right? Sight is constrained to what is. Sight is constrained to what is, which means what? What am I trying to say here? I'm saying that if I see the tube light there, then I know it's a tube light. The light is coming from the tube light. It's constrained to what is. It's constrained to what's possible. It's constrained to what's practical. It's constrained to what's logical. The thing with vision, right? Vision is connected to what can be. Vision is connected to what can be. Vision is connected to possibility. Vision is connected to creativity. Vision is connected to thinking completely out of the box. But sight is all about living in the box. What is? And we talk about it so often, haven't we? I want to be outside the comfort zone. I want to live outside the box. But you know what? We are also comfortable living in the box. But you want to be a victor and you want to operate with vision, you got to be moving outside the comfort zone. You see, vision is God showing you what is to come. So that's why it's giving you the idea. God gave me this idea to start something called as the Purpose Project. Okay, and this was last September, and we said, hey, we want to help people to find what their purpose is. By God's grace, and just acted on that idea, got together a team, started doing stuff. By God's grace, we've trained people across about 12 countries across the world. We've trained people from almost about 24 states of all of the states in India, over 24 states, right? People have come in. We've covered more than 600 odd people. We have the Purpose Project today in English and Tamil and in Hindi and Malayalam. And last week we did it in Bahasa. Bahasa is an Indonesian language, right? By God's grace, right? We had the vision, we acted upon it, and more than 600 odd people have found out what their purpose is. I'm not saying to boast, but I'm saying we stand back here surprised and shocked at seeing how God can, what God can do when you choose to act on the vision that God gives you. Okay, so vision is extremely, extremely critical. You see, self-imposed limits deter our ability to visualize. And therefore, we settle for what we can see, we settle for what's possible, and we excuse ourselves while convincing ourselves to be practical. So don't allow limits to come in. Limits blind you of the possibility of visions. Visions are not been done before. There are no precedents, right? And therefore, we have limits, and limits kind of limit us. So I want to ask you, what are the limitations you put on yourself? oh, only I can be only this, I can only get a executive job, or I can only do this. I break those limits. A victor's mindset requires you to break those limits. Only then you can access those visions and you can live out the visions. You see, visionaries dismantle limitations. In order to engage with vision, they don't engage so much with physical sight. Only then you can engage with vision. Okay. That's why we have folks in different fields who change the paradigm, rearrange the rules of the game, and redefine what is possible. So the first aspect, if you want to have of the victor's mindset, is vision. The second element of the victor's mindset is what I call initiative. Is what I call initiative. Initiative is so critical. Initiative is so important. Initiative is the go for it attitude. Is the go for it attitude. That's what initiative is all about, right? Initiative is not sitting back, but initiative is saying, I'm gonna take the lead. Initiative is a pioneering attitude. Initiative is the ability to transform. That's what initiative is. And to explain this, I want to take you to an incident in the Bible, and this is about the famous David versus Goliath battle. Okay, the David Goliath battle has captivated people across centuries. Okay, people in the marketplace, people in in the spiritual area, people in the secular area, right? The David Goliath has been very, very captivating. Many movies have been made on the principle of David and Goliath, right? The underdog versus a superstar, and the underdog wins, right? It's really a battle of the unequals, and the victory of the underdog is always so thrilling and always so good to see a teenager win over a giant. Wow, that's impossible. Many of us, I think, kind of say, hey, I wish I can be a David, right? We wish, but you can be a David. You can operate with the David mindset. But if you look deeper, right, it's not just an encounter which amplifies just the underdog. Yes, it is, but it's a encounter which articulates the power of being able to pioneer something, to take initiative, and in the process actually transform. Let's look at the how it played out, this whole David and Goliath situation, right? In the first place, it wasn't David's business to fight the battle. He was there just to deliver lunch. Remember, his father said, take these lunch packets and go deliver that to your brothers who are fighting a battle there. His job was to deliver lunch. That's it. Okay. He went to a dangerous place. King Saul, the king of Israel, and his army were really worried and fearful there. The mighty men were afraid. David's job was to just go deliver lunch and come back. But yet he volunteers. And he says, I will fight the giant. Because, it was getting very embarrassing for the whole Israel army, because every day the giant would come and say, send me someone to fight against me. For 40 odd days, it went like that. And nobody was volunteering, say, I will go. So David appeared on the scene, and David showed up and said, hey, you know what? I'm going to do this. And he volunteered. He had no business volunteering, but he wanted. You know what he did there? He took initiative. He said, this is a giant, but it's too big an opportunity for me to miss. Okay, I'm going to seize this opportunity. I'm going to take this initiative. What looked like danger for everybody looked like an opportunity for David to distinguish himself. What looked like disaster for everybody, for David, it looked like an opportunity to defend the honor of his God, right? What looked like chaos was actually an opportunity for David to say that, hey, you know what? I'm going to make this a time of great victory. David depended on God, his God, and he used his skills. He didn't use the skills of the sword or the spear, but he used the skills of the sling and the stones. That was his skill. He said, I'm going to use my skills, which I'm extremely confident, and I've used it in the past. I'm going to use those skills of mine to take on this giant. He didn't go with the conventional methods, but he went with his own, he played with his strength. David viewed the encounter with Goliath as an assignment for God. I want you to get that. When you are presented with an opportunity which puts you in discomfort, when you are presented with an opportunity that makes you nervous, how do you view it? You should view it as an assignment from God. When you view it as an assignment from God, it takes a whole different perspective altogether. The need of the hour is for David's to rise up, right? He wasn't qualified for battle. He was just a teenager. He couldn't walk in the armor of the king, but God used him as a pioneer and as a transformer because David had an attitude of initiative. He had an attitude of initiative. You got to recognize opportunity in the midst of adversity. You got to respond to criticism and don't let it distract you. David's brothers criticized him. You got to choose to be a solution provider and not a problem multiplier. Everybody multiplies problem. Everybody says, boss, problem hai. There's a problem here. There's a problem here. There's a problem here. No jobs, no this, no that. Everybody is saying problems. But a victor's mindset says, hey, I can find solutions. I know there are problems, but I can find solutions, right? And that's what David actually looked at. He trusted his ability more than the opinions of others. Do you trust your own God-given ability more than the opinions of others? Others will put labels on you and say, Sagar can only do this. Tanya can only do this. Lakita can only do this much, right? Are you trusting the labels of others, or are you trusting the ability that God has given you? I think that's very important. He fights the giant not basis popular methods, but basis his own unique strength. So I want to tell you, don't be stuck here. Take action. Act on the idea that God has given you. Take the challenge. Pursue the dream. Don't wait for the perfect time, because I love this, right? The right time to do the right thing is right now, right? Don't wait for the right and perfect time. This is the right time, so pursue your dream, and act on that idea. Don't be stuck. Take action. So the second element was initiative. That's the victor's mindset. The third is connection or connected. Are you connected to God? Your connections will determine your strength. You see, when times are tough, and at all times, right, you need strength. You need strength, and you need a strength that lasts. You need a strength that sustains. You need a strength that is supernatural, and that strength you get only when you're connected with God. I love this verse in the Bible from John chapter 15, verses 1 and 6. I'll paraphrase it for you. In John chapter 15, verse 1 and 6, Jesus is having this discussion with his disciples. And he says, guys, you know what? Look at the tree. The tree's got branches. It's got that main stem, which is the vine. And he goes on to say, hey, you know what? Just like how the branches are connected to the vine. And as the branches are connected to the vine, because of that connection of the branch to the vine, it receives its nutrition. It receives its food. It receives its strength. And because it receives its nourishment, therefore, it's able to bear leaves and bear fruit. For a minute, if the branch was disconnected from the vine, you know what? It will die. It will die and will be of no use. And then he goes on to say, I am the vine and you are the branches. In other words, he's saying, hey, you got to be connected. And he says, hey, if you abide in me and my words abide in me, right, then you'll bear fruit, right? My question is, are you connected? You see, staying connected to God is the key to vitality, growth, and fruitfulness. Hey, that I told you, I'm sharing what works for me. I'm not sharing with you theory. I'm sharing what works for me, right? And this is critical. You cannot be fruitful without a strong connection with God. Fruitfulness is proof that the branch abides or is connected to the vine. I want to tell you, the fruit that you bear depends on what you're rooted to. Are you bearing fruit? Or are you just a tree which just leaves perhaps and no fruits? Or now and then you bear fruits, or you're bearing fruits which are which are not ripe, and fruits which are are not so great. The quality of your fruit depends upon what you're rooted to, or in other words, what you're connected to. You cannot live unrighteously and expect to have a victor's mindset. You see, a victor's mindset is actually a transfer of receiving, staying connected to God, and God gives you God gives you, his thoughts, gives you his ideas, gives you his guidance, gives you his direction, gives you his leading, right? And all of that comes because of that connection. You see, in my house, we got an upstairs and downstairs. So upstairs we have a Wi-Fi connection, and downstairs we have another Wi-Fi connection. And at times, when I'm at my work spot, which is upstairs, I'm connected to the Wi-Fi upstairs, right? And when I go down for food or watch some TV or family time, my phone or my device tells me that I'm connected to Wi-Fi, because I believe I know there's a Wi-Fi connection downstairs, right? I'm assuming that my phone connection has shifted to the Wi-Fi router downstairs. But many a times it doesn't shift. It's still connected to the Wi-Fi router upstairs. So my phone shows that there's a Wi-Fi connection is there. But when I try to make a call, when I try to get into a call like this, there's a lot of buffering that happens. I try to, browse the web. There's a lot of buffering that happens. Have you seen buffering? The buffering happens. You know why? Because my Wi-Fi connection is not connected to my Wi-Fi is not connected to the router downstairs. It's still connected to a distant router upstairs. And therefore the buffering. And then quickly I need to just make that change and make sure that I'm on the right, connected to the right router. The moment I'm connected to the right router, I get that bandwidth comes in, and and therefore the speed and everything works well. And that is similarly with our walk with God. How strong is your connection? To what are you connected to in the first place? Right? If you're connected to the wrong source, you won't get power. Another thing that I commonly do, and I laugh at myself, and sometimes I get upset with myself, is that I connect my laptop or my mobile phone on charge. Right, all set. Laptop on charge, mobile on charge, my watch on charge, everything on charge. So morning when I get up, everything's charged and I'm set. You know what I would have not done? I would have plugged it, but I wouldn't have switched it on. Ever happened to you? And then I wake up in the morning and say, oh my God, I didn't put the switch on. And as a result, there's no connection. And there's no battery. There's no charge. And then I have to waste time again switching it on. I can't do, my day is delayed. My point is, are you connected? Does it look like you're connected? You got your plug in, but you've not switched on. Right? So the secret here is about being connected and connected to the right source. So what does connection mean? Right? Again, I'm taking a verse from the Bible, which says in 1 John chapter 3 and verse 24, whoever keeps my commandments abides in God and God in him. And by this we know he who abides in us by the Spirit whom he has given us. Right? So God's Spirit abides in us when we stay connected to him. So I spoke about 3 elements of the Victor's mindset: vision, initiative, connected. Right? The 4th element I want to talk to you about is teachable. Victor's mindset requires you to be teachable. Requires you to be teachable. They see the obstacle to progress and growth is not lack of knowledge, is lack of knowledge. The obstacle to progress and growth is lack of knowledge. And the stumbling block to lack of knowledge is our resistance to be teachable. These are resistance. We come with a I know it all attitude. I know it. What news he's going to say or what news she's going to say. Right? I know it all. I don't need to read up. Right? I know it all. Being teachable opens up new perspectives and provides a platform for deeper insights. You see, there's this guy called Joseph in the Bible, one of my heroes in the Bible found in Genesis, right? He had a very tough past. Tough life. His own brothers sold him off as a slave, to some foreign set of people. And he finds himself as a slave his master was a high-ranking officer in Pharaoh's court in Egypt. And you got to understand that Joseph came from a family of shepherds. His father was a shepherd, his grandfather, line of shepherd. That was their trade, shepherds, sheep, looking after cattle and this and that. And now he finds himself as a slave, right? If I was Joseph, I'm going to tell my master, hey, give me some job related to looking after cattle, sheep. I'll take them out, bring them pasture. That's all I know to do. But Joseph didn't do that. You know why? Joseph was teachable. He learned how to look after the household of Potiphar. He learned administrative duties. He learned how to manage the affairs of the house. He probably learned how to manage the finances of the house. I don't know. He probably learned how to look after the, supervise the kitchen of the house. He knew everything because he was made master of Potiphar's house. You know why? He didn't crib and say, I know only to look after sheep. Yeah, I look after sheep. But he was teachable. He was adaptable. He learned that skill. And then his next stop in life was falsely accused and thrown into prison. And again, he does well in prison. He's in charge of all the prisoners there. He could have said, hey, you know what, I know how to look after sheep. I know how to do administrative work I learned that. But looking after prisoners, no, I don't know. Looking after prisoners probably involved in having some sort of HR skills also. Look after people, right? There. But he learned. And again, he was put in charge. What stands out is skill, his willingness to be teachable. His willingness to be teachable. For me, I say this often, the day you stop to learn is the day you stop to earn. The day you stop to learn is the day you stop to earn, right? So what are the obstacles of being teachable? The obstacles of being teachable are past success. We hold on to past success. Okay, success you had in the past, thank God, move on, create more success with God's help. But you got to keep on celebrating past success. The world has moved on, right? And what got you here will not take you forward. You got to learn new skills in the process. Second is pride. Yeah. The biggest enemy for teachability is pride. Why should he teach me? Why should she teach me? I know it all. Okay, I will. Pride is the enemy for teachability. Humility is the friend of teachability. Okay. And the third and very common excuse, I am too busy. No time to read a book. I know reading book and all is good, but where's the time? Right? I know I will do this course, yeah, so many online courses, but kahan hai yaar, time hi nahi hai. Now with this working from home and all, you don't understand my life. It becomes so difficult. Before I used to go to office by the local train, and I would put my headphones on, I would learn. I mean, we'll tell that as an excuse. At that time, we'll say, I wish I had work from home. Yeah. If I had work from home, no, then I can learn. Now, when you have work from home, you say, I want to go by Mumbai local. That time, there was time for me to learn. Who are you kidding? You're kidding yourself, right? So, I'm too busy. Again, an enemy. Never sacrifice the important for the urgent. We're always sacrificing. No time, no time. If it's important and it's, you will make time for it. Okay. Being teachable means that even in the routine of life, you are constantly on the lookout for learning moments. I want to congratulate each of you for joining this webinar today. Means that you want to learn, right? That's excellent. In your routine, you're looking for learning moments. You proactively search for ideas and you're extremely curious, and you make no distinction from whom you are willing to learn. You're willing to learn from somebody who's much younger to you. You're willing to learn from somebody who's probably not as educated as you. You're willing to learn from anybody because you want to learn. Remember, teachability leads to sustained profitability. Teachability leads to sustained profitability. Okay. I want to go to the next element, which is obedience. So we spoke about vision. We spoke about initiative. We spoke about connected. We spoke about teachability. We're talking about the victor's mindset. Okay, the next is obedience. This passage in the Bible, Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 to 4, where we read that God looks at Abraham, and Abraham is this gentleman who's well settled. Okay, he's living with his dad. He's well settled, quite fine. Life is good, but suddenly he gets an instruction from God, and God says, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land I will show you. And I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you, I will curse, and you and all your families shall be blessed." And the next line says, "So Abraham went as the Lord had told him." I mean, this seems like a regular passage in the Bible, but I want you to put yourself in Abraham's shoes. Imagine being so well settled and well entrenched, and you're familiar with your surroundings, your income is happening, you're living with your dad and family, extended family, life's good. And then God suddenly says, "Hey, I want you to uproot and go to the place that I will tell you. Leave your father and your family, go to the place that I will tell you." God's not even saying, what that place is where he's asking Abraham to go. God's not even saying what is the economic conditions to the place that Abraham's going. God's not even telling him, is it safe to go or not safe to go? God's not telling him, anything, but God's just saying, go to the place I will show you and there I will bless you. That's it. And the next line says, so Abraham went. Right? For me, that is obedience. A victor's mindset is about obedience. You look at the Bible, you have so many incidents. I want to just name a few. Radical instructions, right? Throw the net. Throw the net. Peter had fished all night, caught nothing. Expert fisherman, and there's a teacher who comes on the scene and says, hey, Peter, why don't you go a little further and throw the net? Daytime, not the right time to fish. Taking instructions from a teacher. If I was Peter, I would have said, Lord, I'm the fisherman, you're the teacher, right? I'll tell you about where to catch fish. You tell me about your theology. Let's not get anywhere else, right? Because I know better about fish. But Peter didn't say that. Peter says, at your word, Lord, I will do it. I fished all night, but at your word, Lord, I will do it. And Peter caught such a catch of fish that he's never caught in his lifetime, that he had to ask his friends to come and help him out to pull that net out full of fish. Throw the net. Radical instruction. Fill the jars. Remember that one? Jesus is at that marriage ceremony at Cana of Galilee, and they run out of wine there. And it's a big problem. It's a matter of honor, because you got to be good hosts, and you're not able to serve something like food and wine. You have a shortage there. It's very embarrassing. So Jesus looks at the servants there and says, hey, fill those jars, which is jars kept to fill water, to wash the feet of people. Jesus said, fill those jars with water. And the servants just did it. If I was one of the servants, I would said, Lord, explain to me the chemical reaction. I don't know how H2O is going to create wine. For wine, you need grapes. You need that whole, that whole chemical reaction. I don't know what that chemistry is, but you need chemical. But little that I know, H2O does not make wine. They didn't say that. They did what Jesus asks. And guess what? Water turned into wine. Radical instruction. Move the stone. Remember that instruction. Now, Lazarus had been dead for 4 days. Okay, and Jesus gives this crazy sounding instruction. Move the stone of the tomb. And because they moved the stone, they saw a dead man walking out of that grave clothes and all. Pick up your mat. Remember that one? Here's this guy who's for 30 odd years, paralytic, sitting at that same place. And Jesus looks at him and says, pick up your mat. And the moment he tried to pick up his mat, suddenly he felt strength coming to his lower half of his body, and his legs started to be functional because he chose to obey. You see, obedience works in the spirit. And when it works in the spirit, then it becomes an action. And in that action, that's where the supernatural invades the natural. Right? Pick up the mat. You see, all these suggestions, and there are so many more I can give you. All these suggestions were radical suggestions. But because someone dared to obey God, not questioning the supposed logical deficiencies of those instructions, they experienced the supernatural become a natural occurrence in their life. I can give you so many reasons from my life of obedience. So many I can give, right? But I've realized that every time I've chosen to obey God, it's not backfired. Excuse me for that. It's not backfired, right? So the point I want to tell you is this. Obedience is key. A victor's mindset doesn't depend upon human intellect, but depends on the radical instructions of God. That's what obedience is. That's what obedience is, right? What is God asking you to obey? You're going to sit back and be rebellious and stubborn and say, I'm not going to obey. Or you're going to be fearful and sit back and say, I don't know what will happen if I do this. Yeah. And God won't show you the whole map. He'll show you the next step. And when you take the next step, you'll see the next step. And when you take the next step, you'll see the next step. And that's how it works with God's instructions. Don't sit back and wait for the whole instructions to emerge for you to go. It doesn't work that way, right? So that is obedience. And let me move to the last aspect of the victor's mindset is you got to be a risk taker. You got to be a risk taker, right? And you got to be willing to take that personal risk. And here I want to talk to you about a man called Nehemiah in the Bible. Nehemiah was the cupbearer to the king, very prestigious position, right? Which means Nehemiah had had proximity to the king. He was a confidant of the king. The king would share many things, and it was his chief role. His job was to taste the food and the wine of the king, right? In case, because in those days they would poison the king's food and wine, and his job was to taste it. And whenever he offered food and wine to the king, he had to be very happy and have a pleasant demeanor. If he was not happy, it was an offense. They could even kill him, right? But this occasion, when Nehemiah hears about the condition of the walls at Jerusalem, which is all broken down, he's so upset about the whole thing. So he's going to the king's presence, and the king notices that he's sad, and he says, "Hey, why does your face look so sad when you are not ill?" is what the king asks him. This can be nothing but sadness of heart. Look at Nehemiah's response. "I was very much afraid, but I said to the king, may the king live forever." Okay. "Why should my face not look sad when the city where my ancestors were buried lies in ruins and its gates have been destroyed by fire? The king said to me, what is it you want? And I prayed to God of heaven, and I answered the king, if it pleases the king, and if your servant is found favor in your sight, let him send me to the city in Judah where my ancestors are buried, that I can rebuild it." You see, he was not defending himself when the king asked him, why are you so sad? And he uses that moment. The Bible says he prayed and asked God for help, and then immediately says, "King, you got to send me to the place. I got to go fix that broken walls, and I need to be there." You see, the nature of his job, like I told you, it was making the king happy, but he wasn't thinking about either his happiness or his safety, but he was thinking about, it means I need to take a risk right now by telling the king what's on my heart, and the king may be really upset with me, but I'm going to take that risk. Because what my purpose for me to build that wall is so important, right? And if you want to live a life of purpose, remember, you will be called to take risks. You see, another way faith is spelled, Faith, faith. And the Bible says, without faith, it's impossible to please God. You can't please God. I mean, without faith, you can't please God, right? Another way faith is spelled, Faith, is spelled as Risk. Faith is spelled as Risk, right? You see, you cannot play it safe and expect to create impact. You cannot play it safe and expect to create impact. And as you browse through scripture, as you browse through the lives of people who've operated with a victor's mindset, even outside of scripture, you'll find that these were people who took risks. These were people who walked in faith. These are people who took risks. There's nobody who played it safe and made it bigger. If anybody here is on the call, I want to tell you, there's nobody who played it safe and made it big. There's nobody who played it safe and made a difference. There's nobody who played it safe and created history. You can't play it safe. I want to give some examples from the Bible. Abraham took a risk in leaving the land of familiarity, like I told you, and obeying God, and God blessed him eventually. The Bible, you read about Noah. Noah took a risk looking stupid by building an ark at a time when there was no evidence of rain, but he built the ark. Moses took a massive risk of going back to Egypt to negotiate the release of the Israelites. Joshua took a risk of marching around Jericho 7 times. David took a risk running to face Goliath. Gideon took a risk facing the multitude of the Midianites with only 300 people. Peter took a risk and went a little further, and he cast the net only to catch 100-fold. Peter took a risk to get out of the boat and walk on water to his master. I guess you get the point of what I'm trying to say. What's the greatest? You tell me the greatest risk you've taken, and I'll tell you how focused you are in living a life of purpose, and how focused are you to live a life of legacy, and how focused are you to live a life that makes a difference. The size of your risk will tell me the size of your mindset. Will tell me what your mindset is all about. So you got to be willing to take the risk. To give you an example, which really stands out for me, is an example which I saw in a movie. I see movies. I see good movies. A movie of Mahendra Singh Dhoni, right? The biography of Mahendra Singh Dhoni. And there's one scene in that movie which really stood out for me. That's a scene where, with great difficulty, he's got a job as a ticket collector in that station. Government job, okay? He earns him a regular salary. He'll give him a pension when he retires, a government job. And he's there, and there's that scene in the movie, very beautifully depicted, right? It's about to rain. It's raining actually, and he's thinking, man, do I go for safety and security of a government job? Or do I go after the risk of playing, using my talent, my passion of playing cricket, and maybe, just maybe, playing for India, right? And he's in that dilemma at that stage. And finally, he says, I'm going to take the risk. And figuratively, he jumps into the train as if to say goodbye to that ticket collector position, and to take the risk to go after the dream. And and thank God he did that. He's one of India's most successful captains. And hey, I don't know about you, my favorite team is Chennai Super Kings, and he's the captain of Chennai Super Kings, right? So I'm so glad he did that, right? But that's a great example of taking a risk. What is the risk that you need to take? And I'm not asking you to take mad risks. I'm asking you to take risks which are prompted by God for you to take. You got to take a risk. You cannot play it safe and still hope to make it, to create impact, right? So with that, I just bring it to a close. What is the victor's mindset, right? V for vision, I for initiative, C for connected, T for teachable, O for obedience, and R for being a risk taker. So I want to wish you all the very best, right? You didn't come here to listen to Gyan. If you came here to listen to Gyan, I think I would have done disservice to you, right? But if you've come here to take something, and these are, like I told you, practical things which I've done in my life and has really paid off and paying off for me, I would hope that many great people will rise up from this call, doing great things by the power of God working in and through you. So I want to wish you the very best. I just want to say that, hey, if you're looking for content on faith and leadership, I encourage you to check out my YouTube channel. It's called Rajiv Chelladurai. God bless, and thank you for this opportunity.
Wow, that was a great session. Believe a lot. Whatever questions we had in our mind was answered. We all have learned a lot for sure. But I believe we have a few questions, and I request you, sir, to kindly answer it for us. And the very first question that we have is, our mind reminds us of our failures. What are the very first steps to move out of our past failures?
Yeah, that's an honest question. I think I appreciate that question. I think your greatest prisoner for you to live out your potential, I mean, the greatest enemy to live out your potential is to stay in the prison of past failures. Okay, I'm reminded of this. Maybe you've heard this example before of this elephant. When the elephant was young, it was tied to a log of wood by a chain, right? And therefore, the elephant, when it was young, was trying to pull itself away from that chain. But it's young. It's an iron chain. But as the elephant grows up, right, they replace the iron chain with a rope. Now the elephant is grown up, it's strong, but in its mind, psychologically, it thinks, how much of an effort I pull, I can't get rid. So it doesn't even try. But what is holding it? It's a rope, not even an iron chain. And the elephant is strong. Just one tug, slight tug, it would pull it off. Similarly, are the failures, supposed failures of the past. Okay. And I don't look at it as failure. I look at it as a learning opportunity. If you want to do something great, you will have the stumbling blocks of not getting it right. And that's what we commonly call as failures. There is nobody who has been an overnight success. Show me one. There's nobody who's been an overnight success. Even the Usain Bolts of the world, be it people who've set up businesses, the Steve Jobs of the world, nobody has been overnight success. They've faced obstacles. But it's your ability to rise up. It's your ability to push through. It's your ability to pick yourself up. That the perseverance, that is the secret of of being able to achieve. So don't stay in the prison of past failures. The good news is, the key to the prison of past failures is in nobody else's hand but your hand. It's up to you to use that key to unlock. So get out of the past failure, and always, when you will fall. When you fall, your question is, what did I learn from this situation? What is this situation teaching me? and if you learn those lessons, you'll be richer by the experience. You only fail when you stop trying. You only fail when you stop trying. As long as you keep trying, you're not yet failed. Okay, if you quit trying, that's when you really arrive at failure. So that would be my answer for that.
Wow, wow, that was. And the second question that we have is, how do we recognize a victim in someone else who is not expressive?
How do you recognize a victim? Sorry, Tanya, I didn't hear the whole question.
How do we recognize a victim in someone else who is not expressive?
Okay, so let me tell you what I understand from the question is that you're trying to help somebody else, and you believe the person is a victim. Is that what the question is?
Yeah.
So I think first I would focus on myself, right? I would focus on how can I actually improve? Where am I, falling short? I would look at a continuous improvement for myself. And yes, if you are in a position of leadership or in a place of influence, which is both the same, by the way, I think it's communication. Just talking to people, asking them right kind of questions, creating an atmosphere of trust where people open up to you, um, being a non-judgmental person. The moment you choose to be non-judgmental, that you don't judge others and say, "Oh my God, you got this weakness. Oh, you can't even do this." When you eliminate all of that thinking, attitude, and also speaking, and you say, "Hey, you know what? Guess what? I'm traveling with you on this. I've also had struggles, and I know you've also got struggles, but let's work together." When you create an atmosphere like that, people generally open up. But I think communicating, spending life with people, building trust. I think these three should help you to help people in your under your influence to actually get rid of the victim's mindset. And I think each of us need mentors. Each of us need at least accountability partners, right? So where we can actually be accountable. So this would help, Tanya.
Question is, how do we maintain a victor's mindset on a daily basis in such a challenging and competitive corporate world?
Yeah, so I think one is having the definition of success. What is your definition of success? For many years, when I was in the corporate world, I thought promotion was a definition of success. I thought designation on a visiting card was a definition of success. It was not. It was just a milestone. It was not a definition of success. It were milestones I needed to achieve, but that didn't define who I was. I realized that later, right? So get your definition of success right. Your definition of success should be: am I being excellent in what I'm doing? Am I improving every day? Right? If you have to compete with yourself, am I getting better than who I was yesterday? Okay, now competing with others, you don't need to fall into that trap. Okay, because that's not the standard. Your standard is your goal. What is your aspiration for your life? My aspiration was that I should write a couple of books. My aspiration, my life was I must inspire people across nations. Right? My aspiration was, that I need to influence and create leaders. Right? Uh, my colleagues who I worked with at that time, their aspiration was to make it to CEO of large organizations. And many of them are CEOs right now, people who started their career with me. So run your own race. Don't try and run somebody else's race. What is your purpose that God has put in your life? You've been wired and you've been given talents and gifts and abilities to run your own race. So run your own race is what I would actually say. Be a continual learner. Be excellent in what you do. You got to be excellent in what you do. If you're not excellent in what you do, then you're slacking off, right? And I don't think that's God pleasing. So this is how I would say. And every day, if what is your goal? When you wake up in the morning, do you know what your goal is? If you don't have a strong goal, you can't operate with a victor's mindset. What is the goal for your season right now? What should you be doing? What should you be achieving? So I think these are things that I would suggest and advise to kind of operate on a victor's mindset on a daily basis.
Wow, this was And the next question that we have is having a victor mentality all that we need to be successful in life?
I would say yes. Again, I'm a little careful when I use the word successful because I believe being purposeful is more important than being successful. Right? Purpose is who you are created to be, and when you live out, you know, your assignment, what God has given you to be who you are supposed to be, that is more satisfying. See, you can be supposedly successful, but not purposeful. But when you are purposeful, by default, you will be successful. So I would say, yes, having a victor's mindset is very important to be living out your purpose, right? Because life is not easy. Let's not make a mistake about it. Life is not easy. Life is tough. Life is unfair. Life can be unforgiving, right? But that's where the joy comes when you're able to live out your purpose despite the difficulties and the challenges. That's where the joy of living actually comes from. If I would say that if there were no difficulties in life, life won't be exciting. You know, it's that joy that comes with despite the challenges and difficulties, I'm able with God's help to live out my purpose, right? That's where the joy comes. And to do that, you got to have a victor's mindset. You got to know what your vision is. You got to be a person of initiative. You got to be connected. You got to be teachable. You got to be obedient, and you got to take those risks. That is how you are going to be purposeful. And when you are purposeful, by default, you'll be successful. Yeah.
Very true. And the next question that we have is how to overcome victim mentality.
I would say everything what I told you about the victor's mindset, right? Do that, you'd overcome the victim's mentality, right? Which is all that I just shared with you. But in addition to what I told you, which is vision, initiative, connection, teachable, obedience, risk. In addition to that, I would say hang out with people who operate with a victor's mindset. If you're going to be hanging out with people who all have a victim's mindset, guess what? You're also going to have a victim's mindset because a victim's mindset is very infectious. You can wear a mask and protect yourself from COVID, but you can't wear a mask and protect yourself from the victim's mindset, right? So I would say by default, by design, kind of choose who you want to hang out with. Very important. Second, what is the content that's going on into your mind? Okay, what content? Be selective about the content that goes into your mind. Have content that's going to feed. Is the content that's going into my mind feeding a victim's mindset, or is it feeding a victor's mindset? So if you're going to eat food, if you're going to eat McDonald's every day or pizza every day, and you say I want to stay healthy and I want my BMI to be like this and my weight to be in this, you are joking. It ain't going to happen, right? But if you're saying, hey, you know what, I want to be fit, right? Then you're going to measure your calories. You're going to ensure that you're going to eat healthy. You're going to exercise. So similarly, the content. You're saying, I want to be a victor, but you're having all self-defeating, negative, pessimistic content going into your mind, which makes you feel inferior. And you know what? You cannot be a victor. But on the contrary, if you have great content going in, you will be a victor, right? So who are you hanging out with? What is the content that you're doing? Right? In addition to all that I told you in the session, I think that's how you can not be a victim and be a victor.
Can having the victor's mindset or optimize come out as we are being overconfident?
Okay, so saying by having a victor's mindset, does it come across as being overconfident? No, I don't think so. I really don't think so. I know some of the most humble people who operate with a victor's mindset, right? Because what their vision is coming from God. They're people who are taking initiative. They are connected to God, which means they are humble. They're obedient to God, right? And they are people who take risks, right? Because God told them to take that risk, right? So I don't think so, right? You can be a victim and you can operate with a victim's mindset and also be very proud, right? Because you're not teachable, right? And you're not teachable because you're proud, and so therefore you can be a victim and be proud. But humility is uh, is something that is the soil on which the fruits of a victor's mindset grows in. So it's not about being overconfident, but it's about being God dependent. Okay, it's not about being overconfident, but it's about being God dependent, right? So I don't think so, Tanya. I don't think you can. But yeah, it's good to be careful. It's good to have people around you who can speak into your life and say, "Hey, Rajiv, you're being overconfident now. Watch it. Be careful." So to have people around you like that who can speak into your life is also useful as guards.
If my family member are victim mindset, draw us back and we cannot maintain distance, what should I do?
Well, you got to have friends around you. You got to have mentors around you. And that's where the connection, the C of the victor comes into play, right? When you are connected to God, you draw strength from that relationship. You draw strength from that communion that you have with God, right? But you can also have friends around you, have mentors, right? Attending meetings like this is very important. It's very useful because you are fed with great content out here. Similarly, right, filling yourself with great content. What is the conversation you're having with yourself? Because you speak to you more than anyone else speaks to you. So if your conversation is, yes, my dad says I'm not going to make it, my brother says that I'm a failure, if David had started to believe what his brothers told him, that you can't win this battle, you just go out, look after the few sheep of your father. If he believed that conversation, he wouldn't have fought the battle with Goliath. But David heard what his brother said, but he still believed what God had ordained him to be, what God had called him to be. Similarly, you listen to people around you, but you got to tune into what God is telling you about you. You respect people around you, but you tune into what God has called you and you act on that. So that would be my answer, Tanya.
And coming to the last question, how do I start celebrating others' success while I constantly fail?
Oh, it's a great question. It's a great question. Your ability to celebrate other people's success is a sign of your own security. It's a sign of your humility. It's a sign of the quality of your heart, right? That despite the fact that you've not yet achieved what you want to achieve, right? But yet you want to celebrate, right? I think that's a great quality that you have. I would urge you, I would encourage you to continue to do that, right? And be persistent with your own efforts. The moment you start to feel a little, oh, that person is getting successful, I am not getting successful, and you start to feed that thought process and that conversation with yourself, that's dangerous. You are on a slippery slope, right? But if you start to celebrate other people's success, say, wow, they've done it. I'm going to learn from them. I'm going to cheer them on. I'm going to spend time understand how they did it, right? That is like a good vitamin for you to actually go ahead. Your time will come if you are doing what you're supposed to be doing now. The tragedy is some people say your time will come, आपकी बारी आएगा, but you'll do nothing now. That's dangerous, right? The only thing that happens is that you grow old. But to have possible growth, even though that growth takes long, you got to be willing to do what you're supposed to be doing right now. I want to talk about the Chinese bamboo. You may have heard of this, right? The Chinese bamboo grows up to, I don't know, some 3-story tall heights. But when they plant the Chinese bamboo, year one, nothing happens. Year two, nothing happens. Year three, the person who planted me saying, I think I wasted my time here. Nothing's happening. Kuch nahi ho raha hai. But after year four, guess what? It suddenly sprouts up and it reaches some 100 feet plus height. Right? That's how it will be with you as well. You got to keep doing what you got to be doing, and there will be a sudden growth. So don't feel bad and envious and miserable when others around you are achieving. Your time will come if you're doing the right thing. Meantime, celebrate with them, encourage them, and let them see the quality of your heart. That you got gold in your heart because you're celebrating somebody else's success. That would be my answer.
Wow, that was really, really amazing.
Thanks, Anya.
Giving us an amazing. I believe we all had a good time and we learned a lot. And especially as an individual, I definitely learned a lot. And one thing that I loved was you cannot be fruitful if you are not connected to God. And I definitely believe that, and I believe we all had a good time. And on behalf of all of us, I take this privilege to thank you for sharing the word. And I will hope to see more of you in the coming days. Thank you so much, sir. And as we come to the end of the session, there are a few announcements that we need to look to. The first announcement is the next Soul Magnet webinar will be on the September 25th. And we have the speaker among us is going to be Mr. Anand Bhatnagar. And the time is going to be the same time as 8:30 p.m. On 18th of September, we would have a special 1 year anniversary Thanksgiving for the webinar that we have joined in today, as we'll be celebrating 1 year of it, and we would love all of you all to join in, and the details for it would be shortly announced, so you have to be tuned. And for more prayer requests, to share your testimonies and to know more about our ministry and the upcoming events, the number that is given on the screen, you can definitely contact and know more about the ministry and the upcoming events. So coming to the end, I believe we all had a good time and learned a lot. And I hope to see you all in the next Soul Magnet webinar. Till then, stay tuned and